Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praise to Salakia. All praise and honor and glory be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Rakha Akodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Shalom wa Baraki, Amah Bakiyar, which is to say peace and blessings to the faithful elect of Yasha Allah. All right. The water Abba for giving me the Rakha Akodash to be able to come back with a lesson on hopefully something that could be edification, exhortation, admonishment, reproof, defending the preaching the gospel or prophecy. All right. It's your brother Shariat coming back at you. And before I get going, I just want to say this lesson is only out to you so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, and so-called Native American Indians, also called because you are actually the Israelites. That's the name of your race. That's your actual name of your actual bloodline. That's where you actually derive from. You're actually the biblical Israelites. These ethnicities that you're under are also called because they're actually bywords of the curses that were put upon the Israelites. And this is only for you to consider yourself to fit into. If your father, your earthly father, your dad is of one of these so-called ethnicities I named, Negro, Latino, or so-called Native American Indian, also called, right? That's what he is. If that's what his lineage is, he would, in truth and in fact, would be a Israelite. You know, you actually go back to the biblical Israelites, right? And that would qualify you as well, all right? Now, with that being said, without any further ado, this is going to be the first start of something that's been on me for a while, things I've been sitting on, telling it's time to go ahead and flip. So, yeah, this is going to be called True Story. True Story, all right? Not his story, but True Story. And this first I guess it's going to be a series or whatever. We're going to be covering real true story with documentation, right, of accounts that were actually retold and plagiarized, going into things like iconoclasm and etc. But the first thing we're getting into is William Tinsdale. Basically the subject we're going to be dealing with at hand is how Jake always say that the white man wrote the Bible, the white man translated the Bible, the white man did everything, right? The so-called white man, who is in fact and in truth Esau. And so-called white people are Edomites. Esau is the progenitor, the sperm donor of the Edomites, who God hates, who still kills and robs and pillages the whole earth, right? Who has no mercy, all right? Now, we're finna go ahead and cut this. Something really quick. This guy's name is William Tinsdale. He actually translated the first English Bible. So, that's a cut. Jake like to say, well, if Jake knew a little bit of knowledge, he won't just say that the so-called white man wrote the book, but he'll say that so-called white man even translated. Esau had no dealings and wants no dealings with the scriptures, all right? He just wants to steal, lie, and kill and use things for his agendas. He don't want anything to actually he don't want to actually deal with anything of God, right? That's what our people do. That's Jacob's gift, right? Esau's younger brother, his twin brother, which is who you so-called Negroes and Native American Indians and Latinos derive from, all right? Jacob, who's an actual person, all right? Now, with that being said, William Tinsdale, he's the first person to actually translate the New Testament into English ever, a so-called black man, all right? William Tinsdale, it says, the first printed English New Testament. William Tinsdale, 1525, right? And it was edited by a man by the name of Edward Can't make that out because this is old English. All right, and it's actually yeah, man. This is a real document of that uh, this account, man. He was a real man. And he was, in fact, what you would call the so-called black man. William Tinsdale. William Tinsdale. All right? I'm going to get some little history on him real quick. He's not a so-called white man. So the first, you can't say that anymore after this, Jake. No one can say, Esau can't even say this anymore. The first the first Bible that was the first New Testament, right? Because no one wants to deal with the Old Testament, even though it's all one book, right? But the first New Testament was first translated by a so-called black man from the Greek, because it was written in Greek. Some things were probably the Hebrew as well. You know, some scholars like to debate, like the book of the book of Matthew, right, which is of the New Testament. But for the most part, as we know, the New Testament was written in Greek. He translated it from Greek into English because you guessed it, so-called blacks, who were actually Jews, were ruling Europe. This is when Esau was in the cave. We ruled Europe for 1,000 years. All right. This is all documented true. Does this look like a so-called white man to you, Jake? No. As many he did this. He wrote the first. He produced the first by the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. He's not a black man. He's an Israelite. More than likely a Jew, right? So-called Negro, a Jew. All right. William Tinsdale. And he was a martyr for the Lord as well, but we'll get into that at a later time. Yep. The first printed English New Testament, William Tyndale. So-called black man, man. This don't look like a white man to me, man. It's Jake all day. Dominant features. Right? You can see his color. His hand, his skin. Right? His nose. His eyes, everything, man. This is Jake, so-called black man. All right. Now, with that being said, let's get something really quick. William Tyndale, right? It said William Tyndale was an English scholar who became a leading figure in Protestant Reformation in the years leading up to his execution. He is well known for his translation of the Bible into English. So where did Jake come from? First, the white man wrote it, and if Jake know a little bit, well, the Scott, you even think the white man brainwashed us so much to where we think he just did everything. Even if it's of ours, we think he even gave it back to us. He probably didn't even do that, you know. But anyway, something I want to get real quick. Go ahead and go into it. This is gonna be short. True story. All right, William Tyndale. This is from Britannica.com, encyclopediabritannica.com. Official. He's an English scholar. And let's see, because you've seen those different images, right? That'll be another later topic. Which one they put up here? See, so-called black man, a Jew, William Tinsdale. Now let's get some information on him real quick, right? William Tinsdale, born 1490, right? They guess somewhere from 1990 to 1994. Gloucestershire, England. Died October 6, 1536, Vivorday, near Brussels, Brabant. English biblical translator. He was a humanist and a Protestant martyr. So he was the English biblical translator. Now, Tyndale was educated at the University of Oxford and became an instructor at the University of Cambridge, where in 1521 he fell in with a group of humanist scholars meeting at the White Horse Inn. Tyndale became convinced that the Bible alone should determine the practices and doctrines of the church, and that and what's the church? The word for church right there will be ecclesia, and we'll get that in a second in the Greek, right? And that's the assembly of the Israelites. And this is the spirit. He became convinced because the Father, he was putting that spirit on us after the falling away, because Yahweh Shah was killed after this point. This is in the 1500s, the 1500s, right? The 1500s. We was already basically years later. The Atlantic trade, the transatlantic slave trade will have to take place, and that Deuteronomy 28 and 68 curse will have to come to pass. But the Father, he lined everything up perfect. Once we got in there, we were going to completely be beaten to out of who we were. But the Bible was already lined up for us to be able to read it, because why did he translate it into English? Because we were brought, right? The rest of his people, so-called Jews, right? We were in Europe, where he in the region he was in, right? But a lot of our people hadn't made it, from West Africa when we fled all the way back in 70 AD, and we're living there for, about 1,000 years sometime, or however much time around that, estimate, right? Now, we will later come from West Africa and be brought to the Americas by who? The British, right? Who were the Edomites, who took over the regions we were running. We were running Europe. We were running the UK, right? We were running the UK. Quick history. And simply put, because this not to get into that, what will we be broken from? The tongue we would be broken from would be Hebrew, right? But they never tell you that, right? And the tongue our ancestors will later speak will be known as what? English. So the Father lined it all up, right? If you can receive it. It says Tyndale became convinced that the Bible alone should determine the practices and doctrines of the church, and that every believer should be able to read the Bible in his own language. After church authorities in England prevented him from translating the Bible there, he went, see that? It says he went to Germany in 1524, receiving financial support from wealthy London merchants. His New Testament translation was completed in July 1525 and printed at Cologne. And when Catholic authorities suppressed it at Worms, the first copies reached England in 1526. Tyndale then began work on Old Testament translation, but was captured in Antwerp before it was completed. He was executed in Vilvoorde in 1536. Right? It says, at the time of his death, several thousands of copies of New Testament had been printed, right? And it's known as the Tyndale Bible, right? It says, however, only one intact don't mean he wrote it. It means he translated it into the language you can understand. So a black man did that. So-called black man did that. An Israelite, who was in fact and truth an Israelite, right? Which is why he was so moved to do this, because this was his heritage, right? He's a saint. He's one of the Father's chosen. That's why he was picked to do this, because the Father knew he was going to bring Judah to the Americas with the rest of his brethren, which is the northern kingdom. Judah represents the southern kingdom, being Benjamin, Levi, and Judah, and the northern kingdom, which is called Ephraim, will be all the other tribes, the 10 other tribes, right? Salakia. Now, um, or 9, I should say, so you would get your 12. But anyway, um, now, what would they be all speaking? When the Columbus came to America, what were the people in America speaking? Who they tell you are so-called Indians, so-called Mexicans. They but Christopher Columbus, who discovered the Americas, right? He had with him uh, a Hebrew interpreter. Why would he have a Hebrew interpreter with him for when he was setting his voyage to come over here to the Americas, the Western Hemisphere from Spain? Why? Because he knew the people that were here, the so-called Indians, right, who you know today to be Native American Indians and so-called Latinos, they were speaking Hebrew, man. Primarily, we were talking about, you know, who they deemed to be Indians, so-called Indians, Native American Indians. They were speaking Hebrew, and he had a Hebrew interpreter who was a Jake as well on board with him from Spain. He was born over there because our people were scattered. That's a part of the curses. Right, so we was in Europe ruling, and we was in West Africa doing our thing as well, right? You know, Jews was all over, you know, and you had the Northern Kingdom scattered in parts as well, all over, as he said, as he promised. So the Christopher Columbus sets voyage here, and he has a Hebrew interpreter on board with him. And what is that? Interpreter's name? You can look him up. His name is De Torres, Luis de Torres. Luis LuisDeTorres. Look them up. And they would beat those people, beat the so-called Native American Indians and all the other Indians, right, of the Americas before they brought in the so-called blacks here, which would be your Haitians and Jamaicans and your American Negroes, right? Before they would bring us all here, they actually were working on beating the tongue out of them and teaching them English. So when we got over here, they was going to put us under the same exact protocol, and everybody will now speak English, and English becomes the #1 spoke language on the planet Earth, right? So the Israelites were going to forget who they were, and with them forgetting who they were going to forget their tongue. So their tongue would now, because the Israelites are still alive, will be English. And the so-called black man set the Bible up, which they will use to find out and to regain access to their true heritage and their connection with the Father, you know, and regain connection to the navigation system, which is what this Bible is, right? Our navigation system, our manual, you know what I'm saying? Our you know, our memory, you know, we will regain access to that due to him setting up this, who you call the so-called black man, whose name is William Tyndale. So you can't say that anymore, Jake. So so-called black man wrote the Bible, man. Let me finish this. At the time of his death, several thousand copies of his New Testament had been printed. However, only one intact copy remains at London's British Library, the first vernacular English text of any part of the Bible to be published. Salakia, the first vernacular English text of any part of the Bible to be so published. Tyndale versions became the basis for most subsequent Salakia English translations, beginning with the King James version of 1611, who true story, is a so-called black man, a biblical Israelite, right? Israelite, so-called Jew. Now, really quick, we're gonna get, matter of fact, we're gonna get the scripture real quick. In fact, let's go here. Yeah, Salaki, I got a lot pulled up, man. All right. Salak. All right. Yeah, so Jake, you can't say that no more. So-called black, that ain't a white man book. White man had nothing to do with it. He was in a cave trying to slowly come back up throughout those 1,000 years. Learn how to bathe yourself. Now, anyway, this is true story, man. Now, let me because the father, he's revealing all of this. Esau stole your identity. He stole who you are, man. He hid everything from you. And it was set up by the father for him to do that. Psalms 85:11. Truth shall spring up out of this. Truth shall spring up of the Salakia. Truth, Psalms 85:11. Truth shall spring up. Truth shall spring out of the earth. Salakia. See? And righteousness shall look down from heaven. So the true story, man. True story was going to come out, man. And righteousness was going to be revealed, man. It's going to look down. See? So there you go, man. Truth stringing out of the earth. That's this true story. These this not his story, but real history, the true story. You know what I'm saying? Truth. Ancient artifacts, true documents. Who we actually are. Is all springing out of the earth. Now, let me get this. Let me get Psalms. Let me just get this. Let me just get a couple scriptures. Like I said, I'm going to keep this simple. And then I'm going to get one more thing to show you. That he's a so-called black man. Psalms 83:1. It says, let me start at 2. Matter of fact, let me start at 1. A song or a psalm of Asaph. Keep not thy silence, O Yahweh, Salakia. Hold not, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. See that? So years and years they've been working on hiding the true story. You know what I'm saying? They all became crafty and making sure we don't know who we are, man. Right? To become shrewd, cunning. And it's all been led by the so-called white man. They smooth with it. You know what I'm saying? They got you fighting and arguing with each other when you the rulers of the earth. Right? And they make sure they pay attention to keep things that's going to keep them in power. And that's you not knowing who you are, because you actually are the power of the earth and been the power of the earth. They take all your stories, your accounts, your actual ancestors, and they say they were them. But you're nobody. See that? Verse 4. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may not be no more in remembrance. So William Tyndale, he didn't even know he was an Israelite. He knew, but he didn't really know. He had fell away. As the scriptures say, it was going to be a falling away first. For they have consulted together with one consent. Who's the they? They are confederate against thee. That's the enemies of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, these other nations, these non-Israelites. It says, and by them coming up against us, they're going against the Most High, because we're his children. The tabernacles of Edom, which so-called white people, and the Ishmaelites, so your so-called Arabs, so-called Muslims, of Moab, so-called Chinese, Hagarenes, Hamites, so-called Africans, Gabal, and Ammon, if I'm not mistaken, and Ammon, so-called Japanese, Amalek, so-called fake Jews, the Jewish people, who are actually just white people, so-called white people as well, but they run the earth. They're the chief house of the Edomites. They're the chief seed of Esau, right? Esau gave birth to the Edomites, which is so-called white people, and he had a top seed that he also of them, of his seed, which is Amalek, and that's why the Jews are the so-called white people who run the earth, because they actually come from Amalek, right? Who's an Edomite himself. The Philistines, Hamite, more Africans, with the inhabitants of Tyre. So there you go, man. They against us. Now verse 12, it says, "Who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession." So they, everything that the Father do to show his people, show the world who his people are, and how we rule in power and regalness. They have said that they are us, and they're the Jews, and they're in the Holy Land, but they're not in the actual places we actually dealt in the ancient times, you know. Verse 16, "Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Yahweh Shem Yahushua." Right? "Let them be confounded and troubled forever." Yeah, let them be put to shame and perish. So all this his story is going out the window now. You know what I'm saying? And hell, with that, I just hope that's just edifying. I'm gonna get one more thing though, right? Because King James, he used, as they said, he used a portion of when he put together his 47 scholars. They based the New Testament translation off the Tyndale Bible, right? Because William Tyndale, he was before King James. He died 30 years before King James was even born, which is spiritual. All right, this is a word right here. So Scotland. England is a part of the UK. 4 countries. Scotland, England, the Wales, and what is it? England. Yeah, England, Scotland, the Wales, and Ireland. King James ruled all those places. And guess what? Our people ruled all those places. So-called Jews, so-called blacks were in all those places. So-called Negroes, who were actually the Jews. So this is where you get the word Scot. Matter of fact, we're gonna show Esau to be a double real quick, and we're just gonna bag up real quick that this is not a game. So Scotland, right? It says name for the Scots, right? Who settled there from Ireland. Now, Scotland actually means dark. Scot means dark. So that would just be dark land. Because, we're going to keep going. Name for the Scots. Who settled, this is etymology online. Dictionary. It says who settled there from Ireland. That's how the name Scotland became Scotland. Because Scots, dark, so-called blacks from Ireland, settled there from Ireland, settled in the land now known as Scotland from Ireland, right? It says their name is of unknown origin. See Scot. See, Latin Scotia began to appear in the ninth century, which is the 900th year, so the 900, A.D. It says 900 years after Yahushua died, who people equally call Jesus, as the name for the region, replacing older Chalcedonia, also named for the inhabitants at the time. So the name simply Scotland comes from the Scots, so-called blacks who moved to the region now that was named after them as Scotland. But Esau won't tell you that. See? He won't tell you that. And this is supposed to be etymology online, so we're going to show him to be a damn devil. See, Scot comes from Scotus, which is plural, because it got an S on it, inhabitants of Ireland, Irishmen, the real Irishmen. So the real people of Ireland were also black. See that? Now, let's show Esau to be a damn liar. That's why you gotta have multiple sources on deck for this dude. So here goes Scotia right here, because he wouldn't give it to us on there, because they know what it means. It says a medieval Scotia. If I can get it. I ain't gonna do all that. Scotia, a medieval and poetic name for Scotland. See? Now it says Scotia, a hollow concave molding at or near the base. Anyway, look, in Latin, because it's a Latin Greek word. It's a Greek word. It's Latin from the Greek word Scotia, right? From feminine of Scotios. It says dark. So the Scots were dark. See that? From Scotos, darkness. Now, that's pretty much it. And you got Scotius down here. It's Latin, 1555 through 65. Greek, Scotia, darkness. The Bible said establish, the scripture said establish everything by 2 or 3 witnesses, right? Let's get this real quick. Yeah, y'all don't like Wiktionary.com, right? But okay, here we go. Latin, Scotia, from ancient Greek. Dark, shadowy, which is dark. Now it says, we're going to scroll down. So that's how you say it in Catalan, Escocia, in English, Scotia, Italian, Scozia. And you can get this, you can find this, you got to get you an actual dictionary. Get you the Charlton T. Lewis and Charles Short, 1879. It's called a Latin dictionary. It's from Oxford. It's from Oxford, Clareton. You can just put in a Latin dictionary. 1879, a Latin dictionary. I'm sure you more than likely can find it, you know. So these are the references right here. And yeah, so right there, ancient Greek, Scotos, darkness. So yeah, man. And then we're gonna get this real quick while we on here. That's Scotland, but he was born in England, right? Tudor, English, and black, and not a slave in sight. See? From musicians to princes, a new book by historian Miranda Kaufman opens a window on the hitherto unknown part played by black people in the 16th century. Before that, because we was ruling since the damn near prior to the 1400s, right? All through the 1600s. It says played by black people in the 16th, when we're not black people, we're the Israelites, you know? See that? We was in England, man. That's where he was born. Our people were scattered everywhere. And this is her right here who wrote this article. She know that. The Black Tudors. King Henry the Seventh, the Eighth. Guess what his so-called last name was, right? You know, we never dealt with that in ancient times, but, you know, things changed over time. His name was King Henry the Seventh. King Henry Tudor. That's where you get the Tudors from. You got the Tudor and you got the Scott, the Stuarts. King James was a Stuart, James Stuart, right? And you got King Henry Tudor. All these people were black people, man. They were also called black people. They were Israelites. We ruled Europe, man. So your Bible, you know, that's in English, was first put in that English, period. By what what people ignorantly and have been misguided, due to miseducation, called black people. This was written by a so-called black man. it was done by a so-called black man. The first English Bible you able to read was put together by a so-called black man, Israelite. So I hope that was edifying, man. William Tinsdale, so-called Negro, so-called black man, Jew, Israelite, son of Jacob. All right. This is that truth springing out of the earth. The devil going down more and more. He hates it. You can see the first printed English New Testament. The first printed English New Testament. Esau didn't do this. So-called white man didn't do it. So-called black man did, man. All right. So I hope this was edifying. And with that, I'm going to say all praises to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Rakah Akodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Shalom wa Barakim, Ha'aman Bakiyar, which is to say peace and blessings to the faithful elect of Yasha Allah only. And with that, I'm going to say Shalom.